Hello.
We're back with X-Files by Moonlight. And this is episode 4 of season 1, called Conduit. All right, Nathan, what'd you think?
It was good. It was a good episode. It was good. It was focused more on building Mulder's character and everything.
It really was. Really.
I wouldn't call it as much of a fun episode.
No.
It was more serious and somber. So I mean, I can't say I enjoyed it as much as I did the previous episode.
Okay. Well, Tombs wasn't a fun episode, would you say? You think it was?
For me, it was.
Because of the jokes he was cracking.
Because it was very...
very Kolchak-y.
Very Kolchak-y, and because there were interesting things like flirtatious things.
Right.
And, all that stuff we talked about. It was for me, it was a fun episode. And it's a freaky monster thing,
It was, yeah.
This one is more the kind of thing that for me, okay, because this is an alien-focused episode.
It is.
And I have an interest in that. I just have more interest in monsters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I really loved this episode. I know that I've been loving all the episodes, so I don't know what to tell you, but this one I specifically loved because of the fact that it is building Mulder's character, and it starts that storyline off, the story arc, and you really start to understand why Mulder is so dedicated to this search for his sister, and you start seeing all those emotions, which you haven't really seen Mulder show emotions yet, as far as crying. This is the first time that we ever saw him break down.
Yeah.
And even going off into his own head sometimes, it's very enjoyable because it shows the characterization. I really liked it, so in that aspect. And I just enjoyed the fact that it was so X-Files-y with the whole UFOs and people searching through the woods and the dark, mood. Very Twin Peaks also.
Yeah.
You mentioned. Yeah, it really had that feeling. I don't know. It was just, it's so classic that
yeah.
episode
We'll
is so
point out one of the aspects that makes it very Twin Peaks.
Yes. So let's start off with the summary. So the first scene we have is the very first thing we see are 2 kids outside in a sleeping bag, and they're just enjoying the stars, and it's nighttime, and they're camping out. And then we see their mom in the camper.
She's in a small camper. Yeah.
Right, and she's also asleep. Then all of a sudden we see her experiencing heavy tremors almost, as far as the camper is shaking around, everything's moving, a bright light, lots of noise. So she's experiencing this, and then we hear her son, who we find out her son's name is Kevin. We hear her son say, call out for her, and then she runs out to him, and he says Ruby's gone, which is his sister. And so she's just searching for Ruby, and of course, the camera pans up, and then we cut to the credits. So that's the opening scene.
Yeah.
Did you think that was pretty? I thought that was pretty good. I mean,
oh yeah,
I really liked it. Yeah,
it was great.
So then the next scene is we're in the FBI headquarters, and Section Chief Blevins is having a conversation with Scully. He's pulled Scully into his office, and the reason is because Mulder has filed a 302, which is a request to to
investigate, to make it an X-file.
Or I think a 302 might be something like request for travel arrangements.
Maybe.
I'm not sure the specifics on that, but it's a request for arrangements to go to Sioux City, Iowa, to investigate this case of a disappearing girl, and it's of the sister/daughter that we saw.
But he's just found out about this case off a tabloid magazine.
Right, he did.
So that's the big thing, and that they want, why they don't want to do it, you know?
Yeah, and I'm not sure how they knew that. I guess he wrote it in the 302. I don't know why he would, but I guess he doesn't care.
Guess he has to say how he knows about it, and that was like all apparently.
Or there's not like an official X-file on it. I don't know,
Yeah.
but even though it's mentioned later on. But so Blevins is questioning Scully and wondering why he's assigning this case that he just pulled from a tabloid. And then Scully's like, that's weird, I don't know. And then he goes over to a filing cabinet and pulls out an X-file that he has on hand. I don't know why he's kind of confiscated that file. I feel like Mulder should have that tucked away in his X-files. But he pulls out the file of Samantha Mulder, which is Mulder's sister. And Mulder opened the case on it. And Scully's rifling through it. And this is the first time you actually see Scully, I mean, she knows about Mulder's sister, but this is the first time that you see her looking at this kind of file, like really delving into it. Protecting Mulder in a way, and even Blevins says that because he asks her if she knows anything about that, and she doesn't say anything. And then she comes out with it and she says that Mulder told her the whole story, that he remembers a bright light, and he was 12 and she was 8. And so this is where we get Mulder's age. He's 33 at this point, because she disappeared 21 years ago. So she's looking through the file, and Blevins basically wants to know if he is compromising the cases that he's investigating due to his personal interest in them. So, and I guess this has been a regular occurrence. He mentions that the preoccupation with fringe matters has been a problem with Mulder. So he wants to disallow the 302. But then Scully says, let me talk to him about it, see if there's any legitimacy to it. So I guess she goes over, well, the next scene is of Scully's talking to Mulder about it, and they're kind of going back and forth, and Mulder's like, I think it's legitimate, and she's like, well, we don't have anything to go on. But he explains to her about Lake Okoboji. Which is which is
a UFO hotspot.
A UFO hotspot, right? And he pulls out his slideshow. I love. He just loves slideshows. He just puts that on throughout the whole series. It's awesome. And he shows the newspaper report of a Girl Scout troop who took a picture of a UFO in the sky in 1967. There were 4 sightings on a specific day or month, I'm not sure. But Scully sees this, and he shows her that it is the same. One of the Girl Scouts that saw this is the mother of the girl who just disappeared.
Yeah.
That's an interesting connection. And so then the next thing we see is Mulder and Scully arriving at Darlene Morris's house. And Darlene Morris is the Girl Scout and the mother of this girl who disappeared. So this is one of my favorite scenes, in that when they arrive at Darlene's house, they're kind of getting settled in, and she's making them tea so they can have a conversation. And Mulder finds himself looking at the photos on the mantle, and he's just mesmerized, and he's connecting all of this with his sister. It's really sad.
Well, there's a ridiculous coincidence also that there's a photograph of the little girl on the mantle.
Similar thing.
They're in a swimming pool in their swimsuits,
right?
You know, which was an odd enough thing that was with the picture they chose for the file,
right?
Let alone for a mantle photograph. But yeah, and it was like it looked like the same almost.
It really looks like
if you
her.
had barely having seen it, you wouldn't even. You'd be like, isn't that picture from earlier?
Yeah, and I mean, Mulder sees the picture of the little girl, and he just like lightly touches it, and you can just see that he's having an emotional connection, in flashbacks probably. And Scully just looks at him and. This episode is it's creating, it's furthering their relationship because she's really getting to the point where she's almost protective over him, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it's like they're getting more personal with each other. So they sit down to discuss the case, and Darlene is explaining to them that she thinks that they're here, the aliens are here, and they took her. Mm-hmm. And Mulder is trying not to
give himself away and just say, act unprofessional.
Right, which is kind of amazing.
He just doesn't say anything. He just
right. He asks if he can interview the boy Kevin, and she lets him. Meanwhile, Scully is giving her.
Scully's still there, and she's just making a face like. I mean, it doesn't. It's just more of a,
I can't believe we're here.
Intense face. Yeah. It wasn't like a.
It wasn't a mean face.
No, she wasn't making any kind of a. The lady said, whenever I tell this story, people look at me like you're looking at me, but it's like, I didn't think she was making any particularly snide expression. Well, she was just kind of like looking at her like with wide eyes.
That's why she actually said.
It wasn't like a scoffing type of expression.
No, but she said people get a look in their eyes.
I would think most people would just sort of roll their eyes.
But she didn't say that your face, like you're giving me a look. She says you're getting a look in your eyes that most people give me, which is wide-eyed, so it's valid. And then we cut to Mulder interviewing the boy, Kevin, and the little boy is just sitting there in front of a television that is just white noise. It's just snow. Yeah. And there's nothing on, and he's just sitting there.
Writing ones and zeros.
Randomly. Yeah. It seems randomly. And he kind of has this creepy look on his face. He reminded me of the kid from Twilight Zone who was like going to wish him into a cornfield. Yeah. But he didn't really want to talk to Mulder about anything. But Mulder asked him what he was doing, and he said he was drawing. And then he said, "Can I see it?" And he said, "Where did you get this?" Or "Where did you get this idea?" And he pointed to the TV, right? Mm-hmm. And Mulder took one of the papers, and the next thing we see is Mulder faxing one of the papers to his friend Danny, and I think this is the first episode, where we hear Mulder talking to Danny. Danny is like his friend at the FBI who always like processes things, you know what I mean? So he usually calls him up to get something done quickly.
And you said they never show this.
They never show Danny. No, there are a few characters.
That's interesting.
Like that.
Usually at some point there's a reveal.
Yeah, no, Danny never shows up.
And it's usually some kind of surprise, like, oh, Danny's a lady, or something like that.
Like they did with Diane in Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
But so and then after Mulder faxes this to Danny, he goes into the office where Scully is talking to the sheriff, who is also the sheriff from the new Dark Shadows, the revival Dark Shadows.
Yeah, that was
90s.
cool. He doesn't have his main accent.
No, he doesn't. He's just a normal dude.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy that actor, so that's nice to see him.
Yeah, he's good. And he's the sheriff again.
Yeah.
It's funny, there's some actors, I mean, typecasting, I guess. Some actors you see as sheriffs. We were just watching, there's one that's in a lot of, like, low-budget movies, and I forget his name. He's a known guy, and he's always a sheriff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they see that probably one of the last things he did was Dark Shadows in 91, and then he's doing this in 93, so they see that on the resume, they're like, oh.
I guess it just means you're really good at it. So.
Yeah,
he's good.
So the sheriff is telling Mulder that, look, this Ruby who disappeared is no prom queen. And though it's funny because I guess they had a different idea of prom queens back in the day. Yeah, because
he starts to imply that she's kind of has a wild side, and then we were kind of like, so she's like a real prom queen.
Yeah, exactly.
Typical prom queen, like doing wild stuff with guys and all that stuff. It seemed like a prom queen to me.
So,
but and the funny thing is that the description. And also, this person was the prom queen. It was sounding a lot like Laura Palmer from Twin Peaks.
Yeah, this is
who was the example of what we think of as a prom queen.
Right.
Maybe it's because of Laura Palmer that we think that.
In every other movie that we've seen, at least from the 80s, I feel like prom queens were always like
that. They usually like make them a little bit wild, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Totally.
But anyway, it sounded a lot like Laura Palmer.
Yeah. So Mulder and Scully walk out of the police station, and they're kind of perturbed at the sheriff, I guess, because he doesn't really care to look into the.
His attitude is just this. This is the girl who probably ran off.
Ran off, yeah.
I'm not going to waste my time.
So they walk out of the police station and they find a note on their car, and it says "Meet me across the street" or something.
Yeah.
And they look over there.
Weird.
I know. They look over there and
there's some girl like
love Clarice.
No.
And then Mulder looks over there and there's some weird girl like in front of the library, and she's like motions them to come into the library and talk to her. She does not want any contact with them though. She like does it in a weird maneuvering way and gets behind a shelf to like talk to them, and she's like, "You're looking for Ruby, right?" And Scully's like, yeah. And so basically this girl, we don't know who she is, but she says that Ruby was pregnant, and she got pregnant by Greg Randall, and basically they were gonna run off together.
Yeah, and this girl just like made herself suspect number one. Really stupid.
Right? Yeah. Like,
you should have just stayed out of this. Yeah. But go
like,
on.
Leave. And after that, so she told them that Greg is usually a bartender at the Pennsylvania pub. So that leads Mulder and Scully to the Pennsylvania pub.
Which is like a biker club.
Yeah, and it's so funny watching Mulder and Scully walk through this pub.
Yeah.
Because everybody's staring at them. The guys are checking out Scully. And like, and Mulder feels awkward. He's like fixing his tie, and it's just really funny.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's not Pee-wee's Big Adventure funny.
No. But
and then they go up to the bartender, and it's Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh yeah. And he's telling, or Mulder asks him if he has seen Greg, and he says no, he ran off, and tell him he's fired if you see him. And then Mulder notices a tattoo of a UFO on his arm, and Mulder kind of edges his way in, and he's like, hey, that's a nice tattoo, which sounded really weird. And then the guy's like, Mulder said, what is that? And the guy's like, what does it look like? And then he starts saying that people who believe in UFO are hacks, and all UFOs are hacks and stuff like that. And Scully's like looking at him like, what? What are you talking about? What are you doing? And then he pulls back his hair and shows him a horrible burn on his
No, it's like his ear's gone. His ear's burned
been
off.
like singed down to nothing.
There's just like a hole and just some ridges.
Yeah.
A little bit of ridges.
And Scully's like, as a medical doctor, she's just like, wow. He says that you get a killer sunburn in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
When you go out to Lake Okoboji. Yeah. So that was
implying that he got that from like a UFO sighting.
Mm-hmm. So after that, we cut to the motel room where Mulder and Scully are staying at, and Scully is sleeping, and she starts hearing noises outside, and she sees that her gun is not by her bedstand, which is wrong for an FBI agent. You should always keep your gun by your bedstand, your nightstand. But she had it on the desk over there, and so she starts running to grab it, and before she can grab it, her door is kicked open, and these guys walk in, and they're like, where's Mulder? Where's Mulder? Mm-hmm. You know, and she's just like, ugh. And so we then see them interrogating Mulder, and they are NSA. And they're looking for those sheets of paper that kid was drawing, the zeros and the ones. And they said that, and Mulder's trying to find out why they want this information, and finally they come out with it, and they say that it is a defense satellite transmission. And Mulder's like, you're kidding me, what? How could this be, you know? And somehow they get the information. Somebody calls into the NSA, to one of the NSA agents, and they say, oh, we've got to leave. So they leave, but I guess Scully's the one who gave him the information, because Mulder was pissed off at her. He was like, how could you give them the information, you know? That little boy's not a threat. And Scully, which is so interesting, because Scully in future episodes is way more, she would never have done that in future episodes, you know? But I guess
she's learned to be more careful.
She's learning.
Not to be so trusting of the other
that, and also the fact that, like, an 8-year-old boy, you know, although they find 8-year-old kids later on that are really demonic, so I don't
Well, was it the person, no, I guess it wouldn't have been his buddy who called, well, you know, that
Oh, well, he probably, I mean, the fact that Mulder sent the fax through probably alerted the NSA guys, I would assume.
That's
you
what
never
I was
know.
thinking, yeah.
But I don't think it's Danny's fault per se. But so then we see the NSA at Darlene's house, rummaging through the kids' stuff, doing a horribly
like
rough
always,
job.
anytime you see guys rummaging through somebody's room, even like government people are just like throwing everything.
Yeah,
they don't care
things.
what they're tearing up and breaking.
And Mulder,
really horrible.
Mulder and Scully arrive at the house, and they arrive just in time to see the NSA agents taking Darlene and her son Kevin out and arresting them, basically, so that they can interrogate Kevin. Mulder and Scully walk in to the house, and Mulder, I love Mulder's line, he's like, you guys do really delicate work, you know, and he's just totally, because of his experience with his sister and everything, I'm pretty sure he went through this himself as well.
Mm.
He's very protective of like the people.
Yeah.
I've noticed that he's very protective.
Sure.
Of the people in cases. And while Scully probably is also, we haven't really seen that yet. But yeah, he really has humanity to him, I guess.
Yeah.
But so when the NSA guys leave, because they do find a stack of paper with the zeros and the ones, leave because they have what they need, and Mulder and Scully are looking out the kid's window because they went to the bedroom, and Mulder sees the camper with a blistered
The roof is all burned. Yeah.
Yeah, it's completely charred and blistered, and he goes out to investigate, and he's like, he's looking at it and smelling it, and he's just wondering why that happened. Mulder and Scully arrive back at the FBI, and they are talking to a woman who has been investigating the zeros and ones. They're talking to an agent who's been investigating those. And she says that they haven't found anything that's detrimental to national security, but they did find some interesting things in that the zeros and ones are...
They're famous pieces of art.
Yeah,
various
like,
types, and
it was
a segment of a famous piece of music.
A DNA double helix.
Like a bit of a Shakespeare play.
The Brandenburg Concerto, like just a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, a piece by Da Vinci. I forget what it's called.
Universal Man.
Universal Man. Yeah.
Yeah. So and Mulder mentions it's almost like they're switching channels, which I thought was really cool. There's an episode later on that I love so much, and I think it's Little Green Men. Or I'm pretty sure it is. I love that episode. But there's also a scene where they show something like that, and I won't go into details, but it's really good. So Mulder and Scully are just fascinated by this, you know. So Mulder and Scully go to confront Darlene and to apologize to her, and Darlene is not having it. Like, she's like, do not come near my child, and they're trying to apologize, but she's like, don't come near us ever again. And then Mulder and Scully get in the car, and they're driving to town, at least Scully thinks so, but they end up not. And Mulder takes her to Lake Okoboji. Yeah. Because he thinks that Kevin is a conduit. Which, you know, he thinks that when Ruby was abducted, he was touched in some way from the abduction. So he's like a connection between Ruby and the aliens. But there was a really interesting scene in this car ride where Scully actually confronts Mulder about it, and she's like, you know, I know why you're doing this. You know, I know.
Oh, yeah.
And she says that, she says, it's your sister, isn't it? And he doesn't really, you know, say anything.
Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, they haven't been personal with each other, you know, so this is, you know, intense stuff that they're actually discussing this. And then they arrive at Lake Okoboji, and Mulder finds sand that's turned into glass. Yeah. And the tree line has been completely burned out.
And I always remembered this scene.
That's a classic scene also, of them on the shore.
Finding the glass.
Yeah.
When I saw this, like back, you know, when I was a kid and I saw it for the first time, but obviously I saw this episode, you know, way back then, because I always remembered, that's the first time I ever I didn't even know that they made glass out of sand.
Really?
Until
Yeah,
I
so
saw
that's
that
how you learned.
episode.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I never forgot that episode.
I learned many things from X-Files.
Yeah.
A lot of things.
Oh, well, you know, and I grew up reading Uncle Scrooge comics.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of stuff from those, you know, all this art, because it's like archaeological adventures and stuff.
There was actually a time when I was learning Spanish in school, and I actually, to help me learn, I would put on X-Files in Spanish with the subtitles so that I could just get used to hearing them.
Yeah.
And I had already known every single line.
Oh, yeah.
So it really helped to like hear them say it in Spanish, and then that was how I learned.
Yeah.
It helped me learn Spanish, so TV's
Wow.
good. And then after they notice these things, then Scully sees a white wolf, come out from the woods. From the tree line, and she calls Mulder over, and Mulder follows the wolf, and he finds a bunch of other wolves surrounding a pile of rocks.
Yeah. They're just digging at it, and they find out it's because there's a body under there, and it's not very deep.
Yeah, he fires his gun off, and the wolves disperse, and he said he thinks it's a body because of the smell, right?
Yeah.
Mulder, what are you doing? And then he starts taking the rocks out.
Right.
And Scully's like, what are you doing? You know, you're disturbing a crime scene.
Yeah.
And she actually gets down on the ground where he is, and she stops him, you know, and I love that scene because there's also a scene many years later, and I'm talking probably season 7, when they're already sleeping together, I'm pretty sure, when he's looking for his sister in a similar, well, not very similar, but a different case, and he starts digging again, and she actually helps him that time.
Yeah. Didn't he do something like that in the pilot episode too?
I don't think so.
In one of the episodes that we already watched, yeah, he was started messing with. Okay, no, I don't know. It wasn't the pilot episode. Which one was the episode about witches and stuff that we watched?
Witches.
You know what? It was season 11, I guess.
Yeah.
And because we did all of season 11 before we started with, you know, from the beginning here, and yeah, he finds that circle that's the
oh yeah
that they were, and he had to dig for that, and they were telling him, no, what are you doing? You're disturbing the crime scene.
Scully was saying that, she's like, what are you doing, Mulder?
So she still does that.
But it was almost in a way that was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Just stop. These scenes to me feel a little more intense because they're so personal. You know what I mean? And I'm talking the shot, the way they shoot it is like exactly the same. So there are a lot of parallels in X-Files, and I really do like that. They revisit positions and stuff like that. Then we see the police come to find out who is buried under there, and they find out that it is Greg Randall, who is supposedly Ruby's boyfriend. And Mulder asks the sheriff if he can look through the wallet after they ID'd the guy, and he finds a note in there with a doctor's appointment and the doctor who they're gonna see. And then we see them back at the police station, and they're comparing the note to the note that they received from that girl on the windshield, and it is the same handwriting. So the sheriff says that he knows that doctor and he can find out who made the appointment, and it turns out the person who made that appointment was Tessa, who is the girl who
From the library.
left that note from the library. Yeah. So they bring Tessa in and they're interrogating her. And throughout this interrogation, it's very obvious that Mulder does not want. He doesn't care about this part of the.
Yeah.
I mean, he does, but he doesn't. You know what I mean? Like he's bored.
He's there for the aliens.
He wants to get through it and so he interrogates her and he pushes her, like they're not getting anything out of her.
He does it like that.
Yeah,
know,
they're
just
not getting anything
being
out of her.
bad cop, you know.
Yeah, so he does bad cop and he gets it out of her and he just does a mind trick to her through it.
Yeah.
And so we find out she confesses that Ruby was not there when the guy was murdered.
He murdered,
yeah,
basically.
so she murdered the guy, and Ruby wasn't pregnant, but she was.
Yeah.
I don't know why she murdered him. I guess he was messing around with somebody. Maybe he was messing around with Ruby. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't really get that.
He had promised to take her to California.
Yeah.
I guess,
Christmas.
and they almost made it sound like it was just because he didn't do that. So.
Oh, maybe that's.
But maybe he didn't do that because he's with Ruby now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it would be enough. He's probably with Ruby now, and that's why she did it. But.
And so, I think Scully was making that point. She was saying you were jealous and you went out there.
And so instead of leaving with her like he promised, he was getting with Ruby now.
But Mulder solidified that, and he got out of there because he was like, I'm getting back to the root of the investigation.
Yeah, he got that out of the way.
And Scully was like, okay, we're done. Let's go back to Washington. And he was like, no, we're just getting started here. You know?
Still got the missing girl.
Yeah, and but Scully was just like, she's probably dead, which is so weird of Scully. I don't know.
Well, I guess it's just because of the fact that
she was going to turn it over to local
want
law
them on
enforcement.
that investigation in the first place.
Yeah,
so.
Scully's still walking that line. She's still walking the line. She hasn't completely converted yet.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, and I mean, like she is always walking the line of being a skeptic, but in a few episodes, she's gonna finally convert to being like totally on Mulder's side. You know what I mean? Then we have so Mulder and Scully are in the hallway, and she's telling him to stop. It's time to go home, and Mulder says, I'm going with or without you, because she starts going into that sister thing again. Mm-hmm. She's like, stop running after your sister, you know? It's not going to bring her back, which I feel like they haven't known each other very long, and if somebody said that to me, I would be like, the hell do you think you are, you know? And he almost turns around and looks at her like, don't tell me that, you know? Yeah. Which I totally get. So, but he said, come with me or don't come with me, but I'm not leaving until I find that girl. And so she, of course, tags along. And then the next scene is Mulder and Scully at Darlene's house. They walk in the door. Darlene's not there. Kevin's not there, but they do find a bunch of paper all over the living room floor, and it all has those zeros and ones. And Mulder's just sitting there trying to figure out what those mean. Scully goes upstairs to investigate and see if they're up there, and then she turns around and sees that the zeros and ones are forming the face of Ruby.
Oh yeah, it's like Last Crusade, X marks the spot.
Yeah.
You get up on the stairs and look down.
It was very cool. So then we see Scully and Mulder driving to Lake Okoboji, and this is also a super good scene because we get more characterization of Mulder. He says that he had a ritual when he was a child, and he would walk into to his bedroom with his eyes closed, thinking that when he opened them, he was going to see his sister. Yeah. And he said that he's still walking into that room every day of his life, and he's like really starting to bare his heart to Scully, you know, which I think is important to see. Yeah. And then Mulder they run into the camper. They find the camper. Darlene and Kevin are not in the camper. And but finally they run into the woods and they find Darlene, and she's kind of like trying to keep up with Kevin, but she couldn't keep up with him. So Scully stays behind with Darlene, and then Mulder runs after Kevin, he's walking towards a bright light in the woods because he thinks that it's the UFO. But see that it is actually a bunch of motorcyclists,
those bikers from the bar,
They're coming towards him, and Mulder has to jump on him and like save him from being crushed. But the bikers were also out there for a reason. They were out there to see the UFO,
see UFOs,
because that's what they do. And earlier on, the biker at the bar, the bartender, he had mentioned you should ride with us sometimes and you'll see some things, And so Kevin is telling Mulder, I know she's here, and Mulder just doesn't believe him, and he's trying to calm him down. And then we hear Scully yell for Mulder, and Mulder and Kevin run to Scully, and they find Scully giving CPR to Ruby.
Yeah.
Like Ruby's there on the ground,
Ruby's
she's
back.
unconscious, which I didn't know that you could give CPR to an unconscious person. Or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's.
But she's alive. Isn't
they
that,
do that
detrimental to?
No.
If she's already alive, usually.
What do you mean? If you're not,
She's
they
pumping
do
on.
it.
She's pumping on her heart.
That's what. Yeah, you do that stuff even if somebody's. Yeah, that's CPR. Yes, you do.
Sure?
Yes.
I thought that was like to start your heart up again.
Oh, I think that's something you do. I don't know. I never took a class on that, but
Neither did I.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that done like to living people.
Who knows?
When they can't bring them around from whatever, I don't know. Maybe her heart was stopped. I don't know.
So Ruby was there, and Scully said that she was unconscious and she was still alive, and she's giving them CPR. She's giving her CPR. So they end up taking her to the hospital, of course, and the next scene is of Scully and Mulder at the hospital, and they are entering the hospital room where Ruby is, and they confront Ruby, and she's like, I don't know who you are. And then she won't say anything to Mulder because she says she was told not to. And Mulder's like, who told you not to? And she was so scared to say anything. So obviously the aliens or the men or whatever who abducted her, I'm telling her not to. And then they're interrupted by Ruby's mom, Darlene, and she pulls Mulder and Scully out of the hospital room and says that she doesn't want to have anything to do with them. She doesn't want Ruby saying anything about the abduction. And Mulder is so trying to get her to talk.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, Ruby is going to want to talk about it,
That she'll need to talk about it.
But he's almost being
eventually.
Selfish in a way.
Yeah, this is more for him.
Yeah.
Because you can see for a moment he's trying to think of something to say.
Right, to get her to talk about it, which is kind of sad in a way. But he really wants to convince her, and she's just not having it. So she says goodbye and she walks back into the hospital room, and Mulder tries for a second time. He's about to go into the room again, and Scully has to stop him. Scully is stopping him a lot in these episodes, like they're really balancing each other out in that way. And then Mulder gets angry because he knows that she's right, and he turns around and leaves the hospital. The next scene we see is of Scully listening to some tapes of Mulder from the 80s, and they're hypnotic regression tapes. And he's just explaining his experience when his sister was abducted. Yeah. And he sounds so young. It's like, it's sad, you know?
You can tell it's Duchovny.
Right. Oh, yeah, it is Duchovny. But, this is like probably early 20s or something, because it said it was 80. No, it was probably a few years ago, because it was supposed to be 1980 something.
Yeah, it seemed like it wasn't that long before.
And so she's listening, and it's very intense, and it's very sad. Yeah. And then we switch to a shot of Mulder in a church.
Yeah, which I was surprised by.
Was very surprising. And the voiceover of his hypnotic regression session is still going while the church, while we're seeing him in this church, and that's just it's a great image. Yeah, I really love that.
That was
shot.
A great shot. That was a great scene from Mulder and everything.
He's staring at a picture of him and of his sister, and they're at the pool.
Yeah,
they're both at the pool, and he's just crying, and then he actually kneels down and he encloses his hands like he's praying. And we haven't really established at all yet that Mulder does not believe in God or is not a Christian or anything. So maybe they were gonna make him a Christian, or something like that. But I really enjoy the fact that he's actually not, and this was just like him being so desperate, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That he goes there, to let out his feelings. So I thought that was really interesting, and this episode was really heavy on the characters, developing the characters, and I really liked that Scully was kind of taking the time to listen to the tapes, to even do that.
Yeah.
I don't know where she got them, but that was maybe they're in the X-Files or something. But yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, it was a really good episode.
An intense episode, a lot of great visuals. Like I said, I love the classic X-Files look, and that's what this one had for sure. And I really like the development of the characters.
Yeah.
Shipper moments. Shipper moments. There were really, I would not say there were any blatant shipper moments. But we can count a few, I guess.
Well, I mean, like the beginning where the very fact that she wanted a chance to go talk to Mulder before they just, refused to.
Before they write him off.
In the beginning, yeah,
that shows dedication.
I mean, and I know that's you could call that just professional, but.
That's true.
With everything with these two, it's personal. It's getting towards.
It is getting personal. It's getting very personal. The fact that Scully is, I would say, the next one for me would be like the first time she mentions Samantha to him, and she's trying to kind of pull him back a little bit.
Well, I mean, all those moments where because it's like
this could be professional.
It's but it's like whenever they're having these personal moments, it's building on. That's what's going to build into. Yeah, and so all the times where she learns stuff about him.
Yeah. Well, it's
emotional, personal stuff.
It's because he's actually letting out things. You know what I mean? So it's more on his side.
But then the way she reacts to it.
But she reacts to it.
I mean, because that's the big thing. I mean, how you react to the personal stuff you learn about somebody.
Right.
So.
And the fact that she cares about him enough to say, stop looking for your sister, try, I mean, it's not a good thing to say, but she's like.
She's trying to help him out.
She's trying to help him.
That's her trying to help him out. Well, I mean, she's trying to help him out, but it's got to do with his work and everything. But I mean, I guess that still goes both ways, really.
I think that the scene where he's looking for, he's digging through that body to find out if it's the girl, and she kind of like stops him. She touches his arm and she's like, just stop. The expressions that she's giving, like she really does care. And then the last scene, that would also be a shipper moment. The next to last scene where he walks away in the hallway and she's just like, you could see that her heart kind of like falls into her chest because she knows how badly it affects him. And then of course the fact that she's even looking into the tapes.
To the tapes, yeah.
That's like when a guy you like is like, ooh, I really like this book or I like this movie, and then you go home and you watch the movie.
It's more like Googling somebody.
That's true.
But I mean, you know, all that stuff could be seen as like a professional concerns.
And it could be friendship.
But
I don't know.
But we know that it builds into something later.
Yeah,
so
yeah. So
it's part of what builds it up, you know.
I would say this episode has a general like shippy feeling, but nothing so blatant as like the previous episode with the flirting.
It's just that was blatant. This is more the fact that she's getting to know more about him, which is part of your relationship. You know, however it goes, and in this case, we know where it goes, but you know. Yeah. So yeah, if you were like a teenager watching this, like a junior high kid, who's obsessed with this show, then you could totally read that stuff as shipper stuff, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah, it was good. You brought some merchandise.
I did bring some merchandise.
Every once in a while, we dig up some X-Files merchandise that we have around.
And I mean, things that we bought like decades ago.
Back when the show was current and everything.
So
although it still is now.
Before I show these to you guys, let me just preface this with I've lost some things from them. Like one of them is missing their name tag, and I'm pretty sure there was another flashlight.
There was a cell phone.
There was a cell phone. Okay.
Did they both have flashlights,
I
or
don't
just
know.
she had a cell
But
phone?
look.
Mulder and Scully action
Yay.
figures. And the reason I know that she has a cell phone at least is because I have the same 2 action figures.
Okay.
And they also came with, like, I think each one, I think these are from the movie.
Yes, these are from the movie. These are the Fight the Future film.
Yeah, and figures. One of them came with one of those alien, like, cocoon holding things.
Yes.
There was like a body in it that's being drained or something.
Right, and you could put Scully in there if you were playing, and be like, Mulder's it.
Have Mulder come save him. Yeah.
Saving. And then Mulder or whoever, somebody came with a body.
Yeah, in a body bag or something, or wrapped up.
Yeah, which is what Scully investigates in the movie, which we'll talk about later. But
pretty interesting.
They're somewhere. Maybe I'll bring those out later on.
I still have mine,
okay.
And I think they have all the stuff.
That's awesome.
But they might be back back in Mom's house, you know.
So there we go. I loved these, and part of the reason why things are missing is because I played with them. So, I'm sure I'll find them at some point, but yeah. So that's it. You enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed the episode.
Yeah.
It's going really well. It really is. I haven't seen one that has been not as up to par yet.
Are there episodes that you think that you are not gonna like as much?
I think more so when we start getting into the later seasons, probably.
For season 1.
Yeah, like when Mulder
leaves
probably. For a while. But
oh gosh, I forgot that we have all those.
Don't
episodes.
worry, that doesn't happen until season 8, so we have a lot to go.
Other agents and stuff.
But at least they're great actors. I mean, Doggett.
Well, we'll see when we get to that. No, I know Doggett's good. But
Doggett's awesome.
As an actor,
Agent Reyes, they're awesome. And Carrie Elwes is a.
I barely remember.
Yeah.
I kind of remember
that he
was
great.
on the show. Is he just one episode, or is he like on?
No, he's like one of the.
That's crazy.
Directors.
I don't even remember the details.
They bring
of that.
Kirshen, which
Do you know what next episode is, or?
The next episode is Shadows, I think.
Okay, interesting.
I could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
If you're curious, get an episode guide. We'll be on episode 5.
Just, go watch episode 5 and then come back and see us.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it.
So, like, comment, and subscribe, please. We want to hear from you guys.
Yeah, and don't forget to watch our other videos.
We've got a lot of stuff.
We do Disney by Moonlight. We're about to get, I don't know if it'll be on before or after this one's posted.
But we're doing Sailor Moon.
We're working on Sailor Moon by Moonlight. And then we have our random stuff, which is just movie reviews.
And trip
as we see them,
trip reports and things like that.
Trip videos, so, there you go.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
We'll see you guys later.
Can you see your sister? No. But I can hear her. What does she say? She's calling out my name over and over again. She's crying out for help, but I can't help her. I can't move.
Are you scared?
I know I should be, but I'm not.
Do you know why?
Because of the voice.
The voice?
The voice in my head.
What's it telling you?
Not to be afraid. It's telling me that no harm will come to her. And that one day she'll return.
Do you believe the voice?